Tuesday, October 16th already. No snow yet. Janine, roll call.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Baker. Yes. Mr. Tuma. Mr. Tuma is absent at the moment. Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
In your packet, you'll receive the minutes of the October 2nd meeting. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Resolution 2018-0205 will hold because we have a presentation by Mrs. Carney. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Brandy Carney, Chief of Public Safety and Justice for the county. I have a short statement that I wanted to read for all of you this morning. Recently, we learned of a sixth death in our county jail in recent time. Myself, the county executive, the county sheriff, and other county leadership want to make it clear that even one death of an inmate is unacceptable. We take our mandate to keep inmates safe and secure very seriously. In response to recent events, we announced last week that we are requesting a third party, the U.S. Marshal Service, to come in and do an independent assessment of our county correctional facilities and processes. This includes our downtown jail and also the Euclid and Bedford Heights locations. Peter Elliott, who leads the Northern Ohio Marshal Service, will be bringing in a team of corrections experts to assess our operation and make recommendations to all of us. The team will be led by the U.S. Marshals Chief of Detention and Compliance Standards in Washington, D.C. They will also be reviewing our policies and procedures, looking at our corrections structure, how the office is structured, our staffing plans, and day-to-day operations. The team will consist of persons from the Marshal's office in large cities throughout Ohio, Northern Ohio, and Washington, D.C. They are able to compare our operation with other facilities and institutions that they regularly visit around the country and have detailed knowledge of. The assessment is being done free of charge by the Marshals. They have a particular interest in our jail operations as they use our facilities often to house their own federal prisoners. We are waiting on some final details, including their official start date, but we do expect the assessment will begin sometime this month in October. We look forward to receiving the report and making sure to share it with all of you.
I just had one.
Yes, ma'am.
Something I missed. You said staffing plans, day-to-day operations, and there was a third one.
The structure of the operation.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady.
Yes. When I first heard about the U.S. Marshals' involvement, I was surprised because I didn't know that they did that kind of thing. But I understand, at least I'm told that they do. Mm-hmm. And could you give me a little information about what we know about what they do? And they're out of Washington. Do we have any, history of what they do? Or
So the councilman, what I had made the note of them going on and seeing different institutions throughout the country. I did speak with our local marshal, Pete Elliott, this morning. Mm-hmm. He said that they do visit both state and local institutions throughout the countries, so they become familiar with state standards as well as local standards.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but just so I'm staying on the same place. When he says they, he doesn't mean his office here. He means Washington, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I'm sorry. So the chief of compliance and standards in Washington for the facilities, correctional facilities, they have a team in Washington. That team, along with the U.S. Marshals locally, are going to come in and assess our jail. And it's my understanding some people from the other marshal offices throughout Ohio, Toledo, for example, where there are other large institutions, are also going to be part of that group. So they're putting together that group now.
Okay. I had never, and didn't know that they did that. No.
They're a really great group. I think all of you have probably worked with Pete in the past, and so we're looking forward to it and what they can provide for us and the expertise they have.
Ms. Conwell.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Brandy, are we the only jail within Cuyahoga, within the state of Ohio that has had these issues in regards to inmates dying, or are there some other institutions?
Chairwoman, I can say that unfortunately, all of the institutions with the opioid epidemic and mental health concerns have unfortunately had to deal with a lot of the same issues as us locally, including some of the large amounts of people within the institutions. I can't speak specifically to the statistics, for example, concerning the deaths recently, but I can follow up with some information for you on that.
And the reason I asked that question, because you were saying that the group that was going to come here and give us an assessment is from Toledo and from other places. So in turn, when Toledo may have some deaths of this nature, are we going out and participating as well? Someone from Cuyahoga County?
This is the first time that I'm aware of somewhere in Ohio. I know our team within Cuyahoga County has not participated on one of these teams before, but it could be an opportunity in the future. But this is the first time with the U.S. Marshals coming in and the team that they're putting together.
Thank you.
Ms. Baker.
Yes, and I know there certainly are some things that we need to learn. The 6 deaths that we've had, 4 of them I think they've been able to identify as suicide and perhaps drug-related, but there are 2 that they could not, at least the last I've heard. Is there any update on that?
Councilwoman, we don't have a final update from the medical examiner on the final 2 deaths.
Really? Okay.
But I expect we should soon, so we can make sure to get that information to you.
And another that we hear is the overcrowded piece of the jails. Is that something that is going to be part of, you would suspect would be part of the assessment as to how many we have capacity for and how many more are there than, and what perhaps some solutions? Is that part of the assessment?
It would be part of the assessment for them to look at the overall operation. I would like to bring up that recently we did just increase the staffing, so both medical staffing and recent COs hired. And so that allows for additional inmates to move out to the Bedford Heights location. And so the goal is in the next couple of months is to increase the numbers in Bedford Heights to alleviate some of the numbers downtown here. But that is also something that we would ask the Marshals Service to look at and make recommendations to us.
If I just say, what is the capacity at the Bedford Heights? Is there a large capacity to take more, or are we just moving a few?
Approximately a week ago, we were at 83 beds that were filled, and there's approximately 240 or 250 beds at Bedford Heights that are available.
That's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? Thank you, Brandy, for the update. As you know, we've talked, and the concern with the council, and certainly this committee, but in whole the council, is anybody that dies, we have a great concern, because when we came on, the Levert situation was presented to us. We weren't here for that. So we're really kind of once bit, twice shy on going forward. The introduction of the opioids and the opioid problem and crisis has advanced the problems with deaths, I'm convinced, and it's hard to identify, even though we do x-ray folks, I guess, when they come in. So due diligence is done, but things do slip by. So I'm hopeful that this group will be able to identify some of our problems and that we could easily correct them. I've talked to the executive regarding professionalism of the COs, and by that I mean advanced education and paying accordingly. That I think this should, they're, in my opinion, just like police officers, only in an institution. And to draw qualified people, I think we need to start looking at what level of professionalism that they have, that they attain as far as degrees or certifications. We need to start professionalizing that a little bit better. I think the turnover will subside at that point. That's just my guess. But I talked to the executive about that, and I'd love to see that. Is there an estimated time as far as this review will take, or do you anticipate a date?
So again, when I spoke with Marshall Elliott this morning, he had said that they would start sometime this month in October. I had asked how long he had thought the assessment might take, and he didn't have that information. He was waiting on Washington. My best guess would be approximately anywhere from 2 weeks to, 4 to 5 weeks, but I unfortunately, that would be a guess on my end. But as soon as I find out, I can make sure to share that with all of you.
Yeah, if you could, because we're going to request, and I talked to you about this, is when the report is done, we're going to request at least a 48-hour window for review. I think it's important that all of council get to see the report and to have any input that they may have regarding the report going forward, because I would imagine this is going to be a template on where we need to go, not just where we're at. And
We
I
asked
think,
for recommendations, sorry, sir.
right, and we're trying to keep our eye on it. We don't want to step on toes, but I don't think this is a situation where we need to stay in, as we've been told some other times, to stay in our lane. Our lane is broadened when it comes to this, and our concerns are great. So we'd like to be part of the solution going forward. So if you could do that,
Absolutely.
and I think it's important we have those 2 days for review.
Absolutely, I can speak with the executive, but absolutely, sir.
Okay, thank you. And if there's any concerns with that, get back to us and we'll deal with it in a proper manner.
Absolutely.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Janine, 0205.
Resolution number 2018-0205, making an award on requisition number 42537 to Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons, doing business as Frontline Service in the amount not to exceed $898,300 for operation of the Children Who Witness Violence program.
Good afternoon. Again, Brandy Carney, Chief of Public Safety and Justice. I also have with me Jill Smilek, who is the manager for Witness Victim for the county. And we did put together a few short slides for all of you today. So I first just wanted to speak to the office itself, and then Jill can go about the specific contract that's in front of all of you today. Let's see here. So the first slide just shows Witness Victim Service Center is, again, the county agency within the Department of Public Safety. She does have a staff of justice system advocates. Those advocates, it lists some of the support that they provide on the screen here, including for Cleveland Domestic Violence, the Court of Common Pleas and Juvenile Divisions, as well as major trial units. And her office does include the Children Who Witness Violence program, as well as the Defending Childhood Initiative, two of the special projects that they work on. The Family Justice Center, which Jill also is the manager of, is a multi-agency coordination effort that many of you are aware of. It does include Witness Victim Service Center, as well as other agencies that are outlined here, such as Frontline Services, Rape Crisis, and Cleveland Police. And that's been really successful the last few years in kind of a one-stop shop for victim services locally.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jill Smilek from the Witness Victim Service Center and the Family Justice Center. I'm here today to talk to you about the Children Who Witness Violence program. It was started in 1999. It was started as a community task force that was formed actually by Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. They formed this task force as a result of seeing an increase of victims of domestic violence within their emergency rooms, and just many more children reporting to the emergency room with injuries as a result of either witnessing the violence or being a victim of the violence as well. One of the things that came out of that task force was the need to have some crisis intervention and some short-term services so that kids could be seen as quickly as possible by somebody who could help assess the need for further intervention. The program, like I said, has been operating since 1999. It is driven primarily by police referrals. So police officers are trained to call the Children Who Witness Crisis Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Once they call that hotline, a crisis worker will reach out to the family within 30 minutes of receiving that call. So it's an immediate, quick hit. And then from there, they provide services usually within 24 hours. I say 24 hours, but it's also based on the family's wishes. Sometimes the family, they can opt out, or they can just choose to schedule the appointment for later. They will also go out to scene that night if they need to. The program was reviewed in 2015 by Cleveland State University's Criminology Research Center. I say it was a review more than an evaluation because it was just sort of limited in the scope of what they could assess at that point. One of the things that came out of it was that they didn't see any significant issues. There were no deviations from the program design, but they did see a need with a case file review process to kind of limit the number of cases that they were taking. They were seeing a lot of cases of police officers who were maybe very well intentioned, but they were calling children who witness violence maybe instead of 696 kids. So they clarified that protocol, and as you can see, the referral numbers have actually dropped as a result of that clarification process. But I would also offer that the 1,200 families, 1,200 referrals is our standard. That's what we expect every year. So despite that drop in numbers, they're still significantly over the service target. We released an RFP in June. We sent it to about 30 different service providers throughout the community. We received 2 proposals. One was from Frontline Services. The other was from the Cleveland East Side Ex-Offender Coalition. And we did, after a review, we did select Frontline Services to continue as the operator of the program. The contract is for $898,300 over 2 years, from January 1st, 2019 through the end of 2020. I'm sorry, that should be 2020. Excuse me. And again, our expectation is that they serve 1,200, that they accept 1,200 referrals per year.
I do just have one final comment that I wanted to make, and that this is the only type of immediate response service available for children who witness violence in Cuyahoga County that we're aware of, for that immediate response for the children. So we're happy to take any questions that any of you have.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Through the chair to whoever, Jill or Brandy, that could answer. So can you walk us through a little bit about when the cop goes to the front door and they review the case, what type of cases, number one, are they sending to this program, and how it walks through? So somebody goes to the door of police, what do they do after that? I just guess I need to know that.
Sure. Councilwoman Conwell, thank you for the question. The officer's primary duty is to secure the scene and to make sure that everybody is safe. So all of that work happens before a call is made to children who witness violence. That is not the first thing that they do when they get to the scene of a crime. So they're going to do all of their standard investigation, securing the scene, making an arrest if an arrest needs to be made, taking a report, doing all of those things. And then from there, they would make the phone call to Frontline Services. Sometimes it happens a little bit later that night. It depends on whether or not the officer has to go to another call immediately. But it is, within the same evening or the same shift of when they respond to the crime. The phone number that they call is actually for the mobile crisis hotline that Frontline Services operates, which is, again, staffed 24 hours by clinically trained professionals. And then from there, they get all of the information and kind of do like an intake with the police officer, and they immediately call the family to see what the family's needs are. From there, they will make an appointment. If it's not that day or that night, it's within 24 hours or at the discretion of the family. Once they meet with the family, they follow, it's usually 3 to 4 different appointments that they'll go and work with the family, with the children. So the first thing that they do is engagement, just kind of getting a feeling for what the needs are of the family. They do crisis intervention. So those, is it safe for everybody to stay in the home that night? Is it, do they need some sort of emergency shelter, food, anything like that? They would also assess whether or not 696 kids needs to be called. So they would refer to Children and Family Services if they had suspicion of abuse or neglect towards the child. From there, they do an appointment that's diagnostic and trauma assessment, where they do all of those clinically diagnostic tools, where they do questionnaires and get a history for what's going on with the child. They perform safety planning with the family, and then they do some family education of, kind of taking apart what happened and what they could do differently next time maybe, because a lot of these incidents are domestic violence incidents. And so they make sure to work with mom or the victim, if it's the father, to make sure that everybody understands that the violence in the home does have an impact on the child.
Are they referred to your agency if they need further? Like beyond what-
Absolutely.
Beyond what Frontline can do?
Yes, there's actually multiple referral routes from that point of service. They can come to us for justice system advocacy if there's going to be a criminal case, and vice versa. If we see a report or if we see a client and we feel that children who witness violence needs to be called, we can make that referral as well if it doesn't seem that the police officer has at that point. We also operate the Defending Childhood Initiative, so we can make sure that children are linked to longer-term trauma treatment.
Good, good. And just little concern, you said that this contract or what we're doing for 2 years is only for like 2,400 referrals over the 2-year period. So, and you stated, Brandy, that our numbers are up, but so how many other cases, I guess, out there are we not servicing?
I don't know the total universe of how many could be served. Again, it's through that assessment that Cleveland State University did. They did pare down of what cases were being referred, and that was purposefully done. It's truly only for incidents where children have actually witnessed the violence, where they're on scene, maybe in the room or very close nearby, and have the trauma that's associated with witnessing violence. There were cases.
Witnessing can be hearing. Correct?
Witnessing can be hearing, absolutely, yes. So the cases where there is clearly a need for additional intervention with the children, we can also pick that up through the Witness Victim Service Center, and again, through the Defending Childhood Initiative. So every child who comes through Children and Family Services is screened for trauma symptoms and can be referred into services through the Defending Childhood Initiative. So through kind of a coordination of all of these programs together, we're doing our best to meet the need.
And I guess my final question, are we tracking any duplication with these case files every year to see if we're going back out to the same families?
That's a great question. I appreciate that question because
Sorry.
I can tell you, as somebody who works at Witness Victim Service Center, I'm sure we are seeing the same families multiple times, but that's something that I can follow up with the service provider about to see how many repeat families they work with.
Okay, this is big.
Thank you.
Yeah. Many of the questions have been asked, and thank you for that clarification. The Children and Family Services, how do you engage with that? I mean, they perhaps have this family already on their radar. Perhaps they've already made some visits prior. So that'll be my first question. How do you work with Children and Family Services to decide whether or not this is a repeat and it's on the watch list, and that now that you're called in, something needs to be done? Or do you step aside and let Children and Family Services step in and make those assessments?
Thank you for that question as well. It is a two-way street, absolutely. So Children and Family Services frequently refers families to Children Who Witness Violence and to the Defending Childhood Initiative. Their primary mission is to make sure that there is no abuse or neglect to the child. Sometimes they get referrals because there is domestic violence in the home and there are concerns about the child's well-being. And so involvement with Children Who Witness Violence or the Defending Childhood Initiative can be part of their case plan for how to stay out of the system, for how to keep that family intact. But as far as fresh cases coming in from a police referral or from a referral from us, we very much look at the totality of the circumstances, and if any of us as professionals feel that there is a risk to the child, an immediate risk of abuse or neglect, then that referral will still be made to Children and Family Services, regardless of whether or not we know that there's an open case. So if we do or we don't know that there's an open case, if we have further concern, it would be referred back to Children and Family Services for additional investigation.
If I just may follow, then would, in that case, which thank you for, that was my next question, is an immediate response taken if you suspect that? Or do you wait the next day or the next couple of days for Children and Family Services to come to the home given it's on their list already, that they need to investigate further? How do you know when it becomes a point where this child needs to be removed right now, or this is out of our scope of work and Children and Family Services need to step in?
All of the workers who are affiliated with the Children Who Witness Violence program are licensed professionals, and they are mandated reporters for child abuse or neglect. So if their observation of the family situation is such that they believe the child is in immediate danger, they would likely inform mom or dad that they need to call Children and Family Services, explain why, get their consent if they can, because sometimes families are very much aware that they need some additional support and some additional help. And then they would make that call likely immediately. And then Children and Family Services has their protocol that I believe they have to investigate within 24 hours, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
So your authority doesn't go to the point where you would take that child out immediately?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And it seems that after Cleveland State's review, the numbers kind of bottomed out about 1,200, and you're on pace for that this year. Okay. Are there any other questions? And we're not used to this. It seems as though we have a lot of time to get this through. So I would assume we can do all 3 readings.
You don't have a problem with that?
No.
Is that fine? Thank you. Well, if it's all right with the committee, I would move this to the full council for all 3 readings, probably sometime in November, and you'll have plenty of room to move forward with this, if that's okay.
You know, may I follow up with one question? Thanks. You know, I'm just kind of digesting what you just said. If you see a child that is in immediate need to be out of the environment he's in, did you say you don't have the authority to be able to rescue that child? And if that's the case, is there any thought of changing that? I mean, how are we protecting these children who witness violent acts and perhaps could be themselves part of that violent act if we can't immediately make a decision, especially if the workers there are qualified?
So I believe under Ohio Revised Code, the only agency or entity that has the ability to remove children on an emergency basis is the local Children and Family Services unit. If there was something that we thought was of dire need and absolutely this is an emergency, we would call the police. And
Okay.
we would hope that that would result in an arrest of the parent who's posing the immediate threat to the child. So we would ask for some additional support from people who are mandated to either arrest a parent or, again, intervene on behalf of the child.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brandy. Is there any miscellaneous business? Hearing none? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we didn't move the item out.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna be like Purnell. I forgot my glasses. Oops, I have my glasses. I made a motion. I think I need a
Yes,
second.
we need a second.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Thank you. So moved. Thank you, Janine.